Hello, welcome back. A second time, but you didn't see the first time. Today is September 26th. We're doing links with friends, and we're doing business and security stories to start your week.
Feels like we've already done this.
We just did one story, so we didn't get too far before it messed up.
So yes, Google. I can't remember what I said before. Oh, right. Yes. Google is getting away with whatever they want, as they usually do. And they're complaining about the most mundane things. They don't want us to know the depth of their crimes.
The Reuters headline is U.S. argues Google wants too much information kept secret at antitrust trial. This Reuters article is worthless because it doesn't actually even link to the exhibit. So the Department of Justice, as they enter evidence and evidence is approved, they're posting it on their website.
Are you saying the Reuters article is also keeping secrets?
Yeah, I mean, this seems unapologetically pro-Google. But what Google actually wants to keep out of the records is email from executives that sound really bad. Like, it sounds really, really bad.
They did use the word embarrassing.
Yeah.
In their complaint.
But there was apparently testimony from a VP, and that is stricken from the record. So that's not on LexisNexis. But this exhibit, this email is. So the email itself is a matter of public record. But the judge is saying, oh, you shouldn't post that on the website, DOJ. So you have to have a LexisNexis account to get it. But if you have a LexisNexis account and you post it on your blog, that's fine. There's no stopping that because that's a matter of public record.
Also, no trade secrets. There was nothing in that email that could be construed as a trade secret. Nobody's arguing that. Again, they just said it was embarrassing. And it seems...
Tough taters. I embarrass myself every week, and there's a public record of it.
What world do we live in that this even makes sense?
And if you want to measure how much power Google has, the response to that wasn't, deal with it. I'm the judge. No, the response was, oh, I'm so sorry.
The Ars Technica headline is, Judge, quote unquote, in a pickle after Google demands DOJ stop sharing public trial exhibits. And the judge actually said, well, I mean, I guess this is a matter of public record, but it's just like...
Also, last week we had an argument, and there was a lot of comments.
A lot of comments on Friday.
About whether or not this gentleman, being the Monopoly man, wore a monocle or not. Now the cosplayer this week does have a monocle.
So this has just sent my friend group into a tailspin because I brought it up with them. They're like, no, he has a monocle. And I was like, no. Like, I mean, some depictions do, but most don't.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the game art, he is not wearing a monocle.
Mandela effect or whatever.
Yeah.
But also that guy's in the background in like SEC trial hearings, and it's amazing.
Ace Ventura. There's a reference to the Monopoly Man, and he has the thing on. So the screenwriters of Ace Ventura also thought he had the monocle.
The monocle feels right.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Well,
argue again in the comments below.
Google would love to be protected under this act, although this is not for them. This is for citizens, which is a rare case. But they would love to delete all of these records.
California legislature passes the Delete Act regulating data brokers. Who is a data broker? Basically anybody. This is an ad agency's worst nightmare, and they're all asleep at the helm.
I would encourage you to read this article just to get the other side's argument in terms of, like, you shouldn't pass this law, because their arguments are so reaching. It's hilarious.
Anybody that has a brain would not, I mean, it's just, is this the world that we live in? It makes no sense. Up is down, black is white. Ignore your lying eyes. I don't know.
The Monopoly Man doesn't have a monocle.
So they argue it's like, well, you know, we take care of this stuff, but if you do this, then it'll just be the Wild West, and it'll all get out there when it's already all out there. Come on.
See also T-Mobile. We'll talk about that later.
They give you 45 days after you submit a request, and they're supposed to delete all of your stuff. I don't think they'll ever actually do that. Law or no law. And maybe, well, I guess it depends on where you stand here, but these protect the children laws are usually just hidden trampling on your rights. And I applaud this judge.
Court blocks California's online child safety law. This is the California Age Appropriate Design Code Act. The intention with this law was to prevent kids from accidentally buying things like Robux with their parents' credit card, foreshadowing. But this law is a terrible law.
And the big thing they're giving it on here is, or the reason they're striking it down is they claim it's First Amendment because by proving you're not a child, then your free speech might be suppressed. Because I'm not willing to prove to you that I'm not a child on your website, ever. It's kind of a bad way to... as usual, when they start down these laws, they do it for the wrong reason. I feel like that leaves an opening later on for somebody to be like, well, that was a dumb reason. And they're like, oh, you're right. Let's put it back quietly. And this is very similar to what you were talking about with the Google issue. And we've seen a lot of these kinds of arguments where you've got technical things, in this case, laws, regulations, and then someone comes along and puts some annotations on it. And they say, oh, these annotations are mine. You can't share them.
DC Circuit decision is a victory for public access group that posts standards online. And I would say this victory doesn't go far enough because the court said there may be some copyright rights in the annotations, but what's happening is when a standard, let's say an electrical standard, is written, it's like, this is how this has to be wired, this should be hooked up, this is the context of this. The language sort of leaves a lot of ambiguity. And so the specification writers will come in and say, okay, here's what you pass in law. And then these footnotes are like translating this into something that a journeyman can understand. The problem is that the law references something that you wouldn't have unless you have this thing from the trade group. So this website publishes that, and the trade group says, no, we want to sell that. But that doesn't work.
Which really undermines the entire purpose of a standard, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It's literally a different standard for the other people.
Yeah, I think that this victory should have said, because it's incorporated in law, you can't have that kind of a copyright. The way this read says that because this website is run by a not-for-profit, it's probably okay. If the website had been run by a for-profit company, it might have had a different outcome, which is bothersome.
Now, you know what else is bothersome? Children. Especially when they steal your credit card and use your hard-earned money to buy digital assets. But there's good news for those of you who've suffered.
The Kotaku headline is Fortnite players, and I would add Fortnite players' parents can now get a refund from historic FTC settlement. Basically, if kids accidentally bought Fortnite bucks, you can get a refund.
Who can prove whether or not it was an accident? No one.
Well, not even necessarily. Like if kids bought it without permission.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you spend some money on Fortnite and if you regret it, nobody's going to be able to call you on it.
Though they didn't say how much in this article anyway, how much the people would be getting back.
It's one of those deals where it depends on how many people sign up. So you're going to get like maybe $5. Maybe.
You can buy another skin in Fortnite for that.
Can you get one for that cheap?
I actually don't know. I know Overwatch, a lot of the skins are like $20, so inflation hits us all.
Now, here's a little something. I figure I consider myself well-versed in the, anti-government conspiracy world. I had no idea that the Snowden archives were 99% hidden. I thought they actually showed us everything.
No.
Not even close.
New revelations from the Snowden archive surface online. These revelations are specifically targeting an ARM processor company, Cavium, but they detail about how the random number generator is compromised. Spoiler alert, I've got some news for you. The random number generator is compromised basically everywhere. You could check out our old video on the Hygon processor, the forbidden processor from China, because it had a completely different random number generator from the party. And so that should tell you something.
Not only that, but in these documents, they revealed that they had compromised other government surveillance programs and were listening in on those. We assume without permission. But the Russian SORM, turns out the NSA was in that for several years, if not indefinitely. And the PRISM program was monitoring Tibetan exiles. Were they sharing that with China?
Yeah, probably.
So very interesting. Boy, I would love to see the other 99% of that. They reveal that the Guardian let the government spy agencies delete theirs. But then they said the Times, I guess that's the New York Times, they have a copy.
Yeah.
Supposedly the New York Times copy is still intact, but they're not going to show you.
My favorite thing about this whole, the elliptic curve was compromised in a similar way, elliptic curve encryption. And that's how the OPM hack happened. So, with the OPM hack, and you remember SolarWinds, basically an inside job, that was a message. Like, that wasn't like, oh my gosh, they got in. That was, we know you're playing games with the random number generators and the chosen random numbers and the standards, and it's in your own products, and we're just going to, slap you in the face with your own defects that you've introduced into your own products deliberately. And so that was kind of a warning shot across the bow that we know that you know that we know. You know?
They did talk to Cavium, and Cavium said, no, we would never do that. That's definitely not true. And maybe they didn't know.
They also said that about the elliptic curve hack, and yet here we are.
I think we said no probably at least 10 times in the last minute.
We also got the elliptic curve. If we had the level 1 bingo cards out, you'd have like 4 marks.
Yeah.
Oh, we should sell that on store.level1text.com.
I mean, that whole story is just such an egregious, like, you look at that and it's just like, wow, society is doomed if we're that level of, like, left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
See if you can squeeze in a VHS rental reference later. And the FCC, for years and years and years, claimed that they could do nothing about the robocallers. We're just helpless. But now we got some new blood in there, and they're trying, but they're struggling.
The FCC plays whack-a-mole with telcos accused of profiting from robocalls. Knowing people inside some really tiny telecom companies, I can confirm, yes, they absolutely make a lot of money from permitting gray market traffic through their networks.
So this is One Owl Telecom, and they point out how One Owl is run by an Indian fellow, or I guess he's an American national now, but he Indian descent, and he routes all those Indian calls. And then when they got called on that, they created another company and called it One Eye, which they said was a different company, but it used the same IP address and all the same people and the same gateways and everything.
Oh, that company went under. Meet the new company.
But not him as CEO. Although
totally different.
He was still involved. So they're going to turn them all off if they don't clean their traffic up within a certain amount of time. Well, they give them like 14 days, I think. Yeah. The other big story this week, the fun story that everybody was distracted with, was the F-35.
Did they actually find it? I never saw follow-up.
They found the crash site.
They claim they found the debris field, yeah.
Did the hill people descend on it before they could get it?
But
it sure seems like.
We still don't know what caused it, right? But now there are some people who have worked on these systems who are giving us some details.
The F-35 fighter jets are only mission capable 55% of the time, a new report says. Days after a $100 million F-35 jet crashed in rural South Carolina, government watchdog says that this report highlights ongoing maintenance. What if this whole thing is a psyop?
Now,
you can just say that about any story now.
It doesn't need to be a psyop. Think about this. This blew my mind. The reason that these things are constantly in maintenance mode is because the military engineers and maintenance workers aren't allowed to work on them. Only Lockheed Martin can perform maintenance as per the contract of this aircraft. And so there's a backlog.
Are you saying we need right to repair for our jets?
And how many billions of dollars have we sunk into this program?
Yeah. Heaven help us if there's some sort of global conflict.
The big conspiracy theory, of course, is that the software on the jet that went down was the problem, and somebody other than us might have created that problem while it was in flight to test their capabilities. I'm sure they'll give us all the details. Right?
As they often do.
I'm sure there's not another clause in that contract with Lockheed Martin that says you're never allowed to tell anybody about any of this.
Did there happen to be a balloon nearby?
Do you think it got an error code like your car? Like just a bunch of like icons light up.
It's got the Max sad jet face.
And you just, if you're like me, you just quietly put a piece of paper over that.
Turn the stereo up.
It would be funny if it was basically just a check engine light and it spooked the pilot and they're like, well, I guess I'm
Unveil, yeah.
Not taking any chances. What was it, like 100 million a piece?
Yeah.
No worries. And, we get more and more data that's dominating our lives. That's the Google argument, right? That's what they're in trouble for. And no one seems to care too much about the hoovering up of all data, except when it's done to certain classes of people.
Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signs a law restricting release of her travel and security records. So reporters, that wasn't, like, this headline is a terrible headline. The reporter was trying to get an idea of the expenses around her security detail, which would involve travel records and that kind of thing. But it need not be detailed travel records, but they want to hide everything. They don't want you to be able to see what it costs to have a security detail follow her around for all of her campaigning and everything.
Also, apparently the Arkansas State Police have a jet. Why would the state police need a jet?
Do you think they even know how to fly it?
I'm sure
They just
somebody
keep
does.
it parked in the parking lot.
I mean, they're flying it because she was taking flights on it. So,
I mean, it seems reasonable to have accountability to be like, in your official function of governor, we spent this much money on the security detail and travel. And then your personal travel, where, I mean, admittedly, maybe the governor would also need a security detail then, and we spent this much. I would like 2 different numbers. You don't have to tell me where you went, but I would like to know how much you spent.
I want to know everything.
Well,
Public servant.
yeah.
Shouldn't it be itemized billing? I have to give itemized bills.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know where she went like 6 months or a year after the fact. I could kind of see the security aspect of it, but they're trying to drive a truck through the security aspect of it.
A week is enough time.
Yeah.
If you're worried about somebody intercepting her, then just delay it a week.
Somewhere between a week and 6 months, probably, yeah.
Well, we also have some interesting new developments in the government's case against Sam Bankman-Fried. And it does seem pretty obvious that people were defrauded and that money was taken. And usually when something like that happens, the government does their best to get the money back and give it to the rightful owners. But here we're being told that's not the right thing to do.
FTX sues Sam Bankman-Fried's parents and aims to claw back some of the $26 million in gifts and property. And also salary. So they were paying them salary, and there was a whole bunch of stuff going on that does seem kind of shady. But FTX's new management is now suing the parents, saying, "Hey, this wasn't like your official function. This was like this is madness."
I mean, to be fair, they are both deeply involved in crypto, right? No. Oh, no, that's right. Politics and education.
Yeah.
That's what they're in. So what did they offer that company?
It's not looking good.
It's not looking good wherever you see that money either. They're a little too connected, I think. And we're getting some juicy details out of the Amazon case as well. And some emails that probably should have never been written.
Amazon leaders were quote-unquote okay with people being secretly signed up for Prime, the lawsuit alleges. Wait till they get to discovery. They're going to find out Amazon leaders were also quote-unquote okay with third-party sellers selling garbage on the marketplace because the line go up.
It's always the same thing in these cases. It's some poor software engineer,
Yeah,
who like foolishly speaks out, and they're like, "Wait a minute, guys, wouldn't it be a better user experience if we didn't have all these dark patterns?" And then the CEO or the whoever it was, the leaders, they named 3 to the top guys, just gently is like, "I'm okay with this. This is good."
it might take 5 or 10 years, but the emails from engineers that come out of Apple are going to be amazing, because there's some emails like that inside of Apple that hopefully will someday see the light of day that are just going to be incredible.
Now, for those of you who were hyped about the Mexican aliens,
Got some bad news.
Yeah, I think we can, at this point, we can say those were probably not real extraterrestrial creatures. But they want to keep the hype going over at NASA, I guess, because this is probably more press than they get at any other time. So they've picked a guy.
NASA names chief of UFO research. The panel sees no alien evidence.
I read another article that said NASA's kind of like upset with all the alien stories because like we're just trying to put more rovers on space rocks, and this is taking away from interest in that.
Yeah, I like how down to earth and level headed this guy is, because he's like, I've looked at most of this stuff, and I'm not really seeing any evidence of a non-human intelligence. He's like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff we need to investigate. It's probably drones. It's probably new military tech. It might be new military tech, not from the United States. There is some stuff we need to investigate here, but I'm not really seeing any non-human intelligence. And he makes a good case.
Please give us money to put more things on space rocks.
Yeah, he did admit that there's no explanation.
Yeah.
So there's still hope, everybody.
Hope for non-human intelligence.
If you want to believe, you can keep believing. I got to time now. Raw Story is hitting us with these aggressive paywalls. I got to time this correctly. But we had another leader who was behaving badly recently, and I think I left this out last week, but it's a different kind of bad behavior than we usually see from our
I
lawmakers.
almost thought this was going to be a nonsense.
And we now are finding out, because of the surveillance state, it was all on camera, and there might be some more fallout.
Yay, technology. Lauren Boebert could face sex crime charges under Colorado's lewdness law. So she was in a theater, and she was with her boyfriend, and they might have been doing things. But in the world that we live in, it was all recorded, and it's all, she denied everything. She denied that she was behaving badly. And she denied behaving badly in a lot of different ways. And then it's like, okay, here's the receipts. And so it's just, Yay. I love how all of our politicians have just an amazing level of dishonesty. And then only when faced with very crystal clear, that's some nice surveillance footage they've got in the
Nice isn't the first word that comes to mind, but
It's interesting.
crisp maybe.
It was interesting to watch because remember last week there was the Democrat, I think she was running for governor, who had the online,
Yeah, they all, yeah.
and then you had Lauren Boebert, you know, like two sides of the same coin, and the two sides sort of, you know, doing somersaults to ignore one
Yeah.
and demean the other.
Yeah.
One's in public in a movie theater.
Well, I think that was a public website. Actually, she had a way larger audience, I bet.
Yeah, it's like these things kind of, I mean, she shouldn't have been vaping. She shouldn't have been bothering other people. But
Would you have been, I guess, you know what, never mind. None of us go to movie theaters anymore. I was about to ask, would you be happy if that happened next to you in a theater, but none of us go. So
I'm furious when people do anything in a movie theater. Just sit quietly.
don't eat your snacks. Don't drink your soda. I don't want to hear you, see you, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we all know my stance on the death penalty for misuse of public restrooms.
Oh, she probably has done that before too.
Yeah,
You know, gets all hot and bothered.
yeah, yeah.
Well, the spy balloons, remember how exciting that was?
That was a really
balloons?
exciting,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks.
It turned out to be nothing. And now, after all this has cooled down, we've done all the research. Apparently, it was nothing.
China appears to have suspended spy balloon program after February shootdown, the U.S. intelligence believes.
They're not even saying that it might not have been targeted at us and it might have blown off course.
Yeah, well, we did do the forensics on the equipment, and it was not active when it was floating over whatever.
I wonder if they just deactivated it.
So let's remember, how much do those missiles cost? How much does it cost to scramble those jets? I would probably put somebody's life in danger if we used an F-35 when we did that.
Now, what else was going on then that we needed a distraction from? I can't remember.
That was quite a lot. We probably can't mention it because YouTube won't tolerate it. And here's a little quid pro quo because the big story is, and I believe it to some extent, it's like China's always hacking us. And actually, if you ever put a server online, you look at the IP address, China's always hacking us. But they're not alone.
China accuses the U.S. of hacking Huawei servers as far back as 2009. See also the OPM hack. Oh, I get a 2-for-1 this week.
That's not how it works in bingo. Actually, in bingo, the ball would be taken out of play, so you can't go back to it. But the big revenge for China hacking us was to sanction them and not let them have any lithography. And we brought Japan and the Netherlands in to our conspiracy to lock them out. And some people are claiming that was a very short-term fix.
China has a new computer chip that might render Biden's bans moot. Now, the performance of this chip is nothing amazing, but China's still building a supercomputer out of a lot of them. And so far, early indicators are that it is very, very good performance. It's probably going to be a top 15 supercomputer in the world, even though it's made with older technology.
And that they have the lithography now to keep making more and more.
Yeah. It's not quite as advanced even as Global Foundries, which is stuck on a 6 or 7-year-old process at this point, but it's not bad. You can do a lot with that. You can do a lot with that in your local economy, automotive parts and domestic electronics, and a supercomputer. It's just going to be bigger and take more electricity.
Military vehicles,
Yeah.
because they might be fielding more of those in the future. They've come up with a bit of a bipolar approach to one of their neighbors.
China unveils a Taiwan economic quote-unquote integration plan as warships conduct maneuvers off the coast.
They had their biggest one recently, right?
Now that's what
Wasn't
they're
like
talking
100
about
some
here.
odd, yeah.
But it came alongside these sort of invitations where they're giving more opportunity for people to open businesses and study in China if they're in Taiwan.
Also the islands. So like there's these contested islands, and that's what this was all about.
So this is clearly the carrot and the stick. And they're saying you need to choose one.
Contested islands other than Taiwan that are closer to mainland China.
Fujian or something like that. I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce it. Starts with an F.
Jishin and Fungmin.
But yeah, so Taiwan, and Taiwan's got their election coming up. So this will clearly be some candidate is going to say, no, look, China wants to be friends. And another candidate is going to say, no, China's putting warships.
It's a trap.
Both are true.
Yeah, the Guardian also got some interesting quotes from people in Taipei saying, hey, would you want to invest in like a vacation home on this island? And they were like, nah.
Who has money for vacation homes now?
If the Chinese propaganda videos are to believe, not them. They seem to be having a tough time with it. And not us either, because our economy is also in shambles. F's in the chat for our UK friends, because this seemed like it was inevitable, and now it has happened.
UK opens a new chapter in digital regulation as Parliament passes the online safety bill we've been warning you about for weeks.
This requires the royal assent, which is just astonishing that you still have to do that over there. You still have to pretend that those people are in charge. I guess they are.
Do you think Charles understood that at all?
He understood when somebody told him, you have to sign this. Mm. If you don't sign this, we're going to release those videos. So it's terrible. It's awful. We've talked about it before. It pretty much puts the government in charge of deciding what websites get punished for anything.
You got a license for that website.
Literally has to be licensed. And it's all bad news. But it's the world we live in.
Unrelated. Semi-related. Look at the picture on this article. Is that an awning made out of glass? Wouldn't that get stained immediately?
Maybe it's a window that rotates up.
You have to get water spots on that. Who cleans that?
Anybody want to come live in our basement? It's like you're fleeing the oppression of the license suppression
of the UK, and then you come here. I don't know.
It's a 3-part plan to eventually get Canadian citizenship, because they've got lots of land and they're still pretty nice.
School bus just went by.
The idea of needing a license for things is a fun meme, and you can apply it so often because it's true. But over in Australia, you need one for perhaps one of the simplest things in the world, and it's disgusting. And this woman set out to test it, but I think she kind of burned herself.
Oh, yeah. Well, she burned her child.
Australian journalist calls her baby Methamphetamine Rules as a test of naming regulations, according to The Guardian.
There was another one she considered, but I didn't know what it was, and that's why she didn't choose it, because she was like, oh, people don't know what that means.
Nang.
I'd never heard that.
Nang apparently is the what we call the gas that you which is very disturbing.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
So it got through. This child is now named Methamphetamine Rules, and now she's going to have to go through the process of renaming the child. But she points out that the ledger at the government office always has the history of names in case, cops need to try to get your old aliases. So that child will forever be followed by Methamphetamine Rules.
She's going to need to write a letter to her. It's like, just in case something happens to her, it's like, dear baby, I did this because, not because I'm a horrible person, but I'm sorry about that.
There's the last line in that article is really funny because it's like, it just, meth doesn't even fit him because he's a really chill baby.
As opposed to all the babies who are on. Well, I guess there are babies.
There are babies who are pretty, high strung and cryy, and
well, there's some that are born addicted to it. Right?
Yeah, sadly.
And we have this. The thing we do here in this country is we find hackers and we prosecute them with crimes, knowing that we're never going to get them. And this gentleman is just having fun with it.
One of the FBI's most wanted hackers is trolling the U.S. government, including letting people make T-shirts.
He made his own.
Well, he made his own, but you can also buy that, but he doesn't get any of the money, but he just doesn't care.
He's allegedly behind a lot of hacks. And I don't think he's necessarily denying it. He's just having fun with them. We also got some more leaks this week, and this time it wasn't so much bad behavior as it was the entire game plan for the next couple of years, and they do not like that being out either.
Xbox exec says leaked quote-unquote old emails and documents have quote-unquote outdated info.
We have become more aggressive in the time since then.
Although, if you look at their Xbox Game Pass projections and some of the other stuff, it does not look good from a business standpoint.
The big thing was they want to release the diskless cloud-based Xbox.
And make money off that from now until the end of time. The problem is this old email stuff, is this Disney accounting, or is it really this bleak?
Things are pretty bleak.
Yeah, I'd kind of lean toward it being actually that bleak.
And it's bleak in Vegas too. Let me warn you here. The what happened to you in Vegas in the last couple of years has not stayed in Vegas. Not at all.
MGM Resorts computers barely back up after 10 days as analysts eye effects of casino cyber attacks. There's a job listing. You can make $110 an hour if you're willing to work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, building Red Hat servers for them, which is kind of on the low side.
And 15 million. Oh, no. They paid 15 million of a 30 million ransom. They estimate 8 million per day of downtime. That seems low, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You would think the casinos would be churning out more than that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're downplaying it to protect the stock.
Yeah. I would not want to be a 1099 contractor at $110 an hour dealing with that kind of madness.
It seems like they did very little
Yeah.
to prepare for this.
Yeah.
Although the hackers did admit that it was all social engineering. But you need to have that zero trust policy to protect against that. And that was not the only big hack that we saw this week.
International Criminal Court says cybersecurity incident affected its information systems last week. Yeah. They got it.
That's always the story, isn't it?
Yeah.
They got it.
What can I do about it? Not really anything.
And if you're looking to clean up a traditional crime scene this week, you might be prevented from doing that because of a cyber crime scene.
Clorox products in short supply after a cyber attack, and the company is not saying what other than production of certain cleaning products has been negatively impacted. They are not talking about it. They're going to have to talk about it to shareholders.
Expect a shortage. Although we got off-brand bleach, right? We'll be fine.
But sometimes the off-brand bleach is just from the same company.
OEM bleach.
Yeah.
And these two lovebirds, they had a hell of a business going. I mean, they were making so much money. And the great thing about their business is that all of their products were stolen.
Sysadmin and spouse admit to part in quote-unquote massive pirated Avaya licenses scam. Basically, this was just unlock codes. You buy an Avaya phone system and it comes half broken. And you buy a license code and then it unlocks functionality that already exists in the hardware that you have.
This fellow worked for him, managed to rustle him up a whole big bunch of codes, and then went into business with some other resellers. They had some of the correspondence down here, and he said something like, "Nowhere else on earth can you get a license to unlock this on the same day for this price," because it was stolen.
Yeah.
I can see why that would be tempting, though. And we have, as usual, a new kind of backdoor to look at this week.
Chinese hackers have unleashed a never-before-seen Linux backdoor. Although it's basically a Windows backdoor that's been copy-pasted to Linux.
They got a breakdown of it here, and you can see what it runs through.
It's mainly good for lateral movement through infrastructure and persistence.
They also have some info in there on how to detect it. If you think you might be affected, you might want to take a look at that. And another weekly occurrence is the poorly configured publishing of keys and other secrets. This time it is to GitHub.
Microsoft AI researchers accidentally exposed terabytes of internal sensitive data.
Whoops.
The internal sensitive data was a 38 terabyte archive of Microsoft Teams conversations.
And 2 personal computers of developers working on this project, full backups. And some other authentication keys and stuff as well. They also, this GitHub was set up to be not only globally readable, but globally writable.
Whoops.
So you could get in there and do whatever you wanted with it.
Oh.
I can't wait for some company to figure out that their Teams conversations were part of this. And it's like, what do you mean? We had, for legal reasons, we had turned off Teams conversation logging. What do you mean that it's part of this archive?
Kind of like when you turn off location tracking on your phone. Huh. You know, you do that so you feel better about it not tracking your location. But, of course, it still tracks your location. And that's been proven in court.
Google to pay $155 million in settlements over location tracking. Apple said to be taking notes for how they can avoid a similar settlement in the future because they're also tracking your location when they say they're not.
We're tracking everything, as is Google. So that's unfortunate. The really sad thing about this one, and this really disgusted me, is this is a class action lawsuit, but they argued there is no way that we can identify and get money to everybody who this violated, because it's everybody with an Android phone, like 250 million Americans. So instead, we're just going to take all that money and give it to nonprofit groups.
It also only costs less than $1, and I'm pretty sure that Google made more than $1 per person.
Oh yeah. And you got to be worried about the surveillance state. We have the AirTag tracking, and of course, everybody has a camera in their pocket, so you always got to watch out for those sneaky spies.
A teen girl found an iPhone in an airplane bathroom. Her family says it was put there to record her.
So the evidence is, I don't know if the girl was like expressing discomfort or whatever, but one of the airline employees said, "Oh, you can use the first class bathroom. Let me just run in there and make sure everything's good first." Then came out, and then the girl went in. She found the phone. Then she came out, didn't say anything, and the employee went right back in there. Mm-hmm. So
Ew.
he was taken into custody after the plane landed. Doesn't look like they're going to try to pretend he wasn't doing that.
That means he's probably done it before.
Worst thing about it, she didn't get to use the bathroom. And you are always under surveillance, whether you're having some fun at a movie theater or driving or even going to school.
School principals turned surveillance video of, I don't want to say that sequence of words, into a meme, a lawsuit says.
So this gal here got into a fight. And during that fight, one of the school administrators got a hold of her and pulled her off. And I guess she was somewhat scantily clad. So one of the girls came out. That got captured on the surveillance video. And supposedly the school made that into a meme, comparing it to the Janet Jackson Super Bowl issue.
Fun times.
Now, she is 18, so they're not going to get in trouble for that aspect of it. But they have said that, yes, they did share it, but not as a meme and only as a safety training video.
Okay. I don't buy it.
I also don't buy it.
They could have pixelated it.
Yeah, like there's literally 1,000 ways to get around that.
But also, these children are just feral. They're just attacking each other in the hallways. So.
Oh, that happened when I was in school.
T-Mobile is also denying this. They're saying, oh, this is one of the other data breaches.
Well, that doesn't make it much better, does it?
So many to choose from.
Yeah.
The headline here, which is a developing story at the time we're recording this, is T-Mobile reportedly suffers from its third major data breach in 12 months. So this is employee and PII, and we don't know if it's real or not, but it seems like it's real because the data is there, or maybe it's old data from something that's only just now being made public. It seems like it's a ransomware gone wrong. But this from T-Mobile, who now charges you $10 extra per month if you pay from a credit card as opposed to a debit card. Would you trust a company that's had at least 2, probably 3 major data breaches in the last 12 months with your credit card or your debit card? If you got to give them, why would you give them your debit card? That's crazy.
Also, just last week, they had the issue where people were logging on and seeing other people's data.
Yeah.
So T-Mobile's handling of data, really suspect.
Is this an AI generated image of a sad boy clown?
It doesn't look like the nose is actually attached to his nose, right?
Definitely seems AI generated.
Maybe that's really what T-Mobile looks like.
Fun times.
That's the CEO. Well, there you have it.
That's it for today's episode. We'll see you in the next one.
With business news.
Which will be tomorrow.